Here we go, Treadwell DPT back again with another anatomy breakdown, muscle by muscle. Today we're taking a look at a muscle that's a little bit of an unsung hero, a little bit overlooked, not the most popular but very hardworking. Absolutely essential if you want to flex some real power. We're talking about Brachialis, the workhorse of elbow flexion. It's interesting, we talk about the biceps and how important they are to elbow flexion, but this guy right here is actually the primary elbow flexor. So let's break it down and we'll do a little deep dive. We'll talk origin, insertion, innervation, and function. And we'll finish with a few clinical tidbits. So the brachialis is part of that anterior compartment of the arm, pretty low down that humeral shaft, deep to the biceps brachii. It'll originate on the distal half of the anterior humerus. From there, it'll run straight down into the forearm, inserting onto the ulnar tuberosity and coronoid process of the ulna. So key point there, and a very interesting point, brachialis attaches to the ulnar tuberosity on the ulna. The biceps brachii attaches onto the radius at the radial tuberosity. That's going to matter big time down the line. So just to reiterate, our brachialis originates on the distal half of the anterior humerus and inserts onto the ulnar tuberosity. Simple function here. It doesn't really get much more simple. This is our primary elbow flexor. Big boy, large cross-sectional area. And if you're a gym guy, you know how important mass is to strength. So a big, highly focused muscle playing a very specific role. Because it connects to the ulna, it doesn't really care what position your forearm is in. So you could be supinated, you could be pronated, neutral. Brachialis is always pulling and always flexing. That being said, compare and contrast with the biceps play a role in forearm supination as well. So if you want to specifically isolate the brachialis muscle, you would pronate the forearm. That forearm pronation puts the biceps into mechanical disadvantage. So very important to know those small differences. All in all, you'd be crazy if you get this one. The brachialis is our primary elbow flexor. Our brachialis often has a bit of a dual innervation. Number one, primarily innervated by musculocutaneous nerve, roots C5, C6, and C7. The majority of brachialis' motor supply is provided by the musculocutaneous nerve, but also often receiving innervation from the radial nerve as well, roots C5 through T1. When we look at the path of our two nerves, musculocutaneous and radial, we see our musculocutaneous nerve running down the anterior surface of brachialis medially, and we see the radial nerve running posterior to the humerus and then innervating brachialis laterally. The safe answer for innervation of brachialis is both musculocutaneous nerve and the radial nerve. That being said, I do realize that most professors will just say the anterior compartment of the arm is all innervated by musculocutaneous nerve. Technically true, and I definitely think that works as a study tool. But keep that nuance in mind. The brachialis is primarily innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve, which provides the significant majority of its motor supply, but also gets some assistance from the radial nerve. So here's why this muscle matters. When you're curling with a pronated grip or even a hammer grip, those biceps aren't helping nearly as much. The biceps can't dominate from those positions. That's when the brachialis shows up. That's when you really train it. So it's interesting, I don't see a ton of standalone brachialis injuries, but anecdotally, they do appear pretty commonly in climbing athletes. So just mental image of what those climbers have to do when they're going up the side of a mountain. Arm is of course pronated, They reach, they grab, and they flex their elbow to pull themselves up. And do all of that repeatedly. So of course they're more prone to those overuse injuries, tendinitis, tendinopathy of the brachialis. The symptoms of that brachialis tendinopathy will pretty much follow the anatomy. So like a gradual onset, deep pain and swelling in that anterior elbow. Not quite biceps pain, but not quite golfer's elbow. Maybe they notice it after a long day of climbing or training, and maybe a little bit of difficulty fully extending that arm. Those are the signs and symptoms of that brachialis tendinopathy. A good test for this type of pathology is be a good manual muscle test to bias that brachialis. If it's a source of your pain, you'll definitely provoke it with a manual muscle test. Treatment-wise, it's a nice, easy needling muscle, so I'm big on that approach lately, especially paired with some nice, easy movements that bias those brachialis fibers. Maybe slowing down the climbing or replacing with some band work for a little while. Tendons respond best to loading, especially eccentric training, so best bet is to make that your rehab focus. All right, good deal. That covers brachialis. Pretty simple, straightforward muscle, but like every other muscle, it matters. Not the most popular, but the most powerful. Unsung hero. Biceps gets the fame, brachialis does the dirty work. So there we have it, another one. Much more in store, even more to come. Stay tuned, stay locked. Treadwell DBT. Catch you next time.